Okay, and welcome to the next video in this short mini-series on the production possibilities curve. And basically what, again, we're saying here is the production possibility curve, the PPC, is a model, and this model can be used to show a number of different economic ideas, and currently what we're going to use it to show is efficiency and economic growth, okay? Now, what we're saying here is we've got a few things to understand. So efficiency we'll look at in a second, but there's a difference, and unemployment of resources, but there's a difference between what we call actual and potential growth in this model. So please just, keep that in mind as we go through. And as always, we should start off, by defining what we're talking about. It's a good idea to know what we're talking about before we talk about it. So the definition of efficiency, which is one that you're going to have to learn off, efficiency is a quantifiable concept determined by the ratio of useful output to total input. Now, what does that mean? Essentially, what efficiency means is, get ahead of myself a little bit more. Okay, essentially what efficiency means is making as much stuff as possible in an economic sense, in a micro sense, but now we're just going to talk about macro. If the economy can use its factors of production to make as much stuff as possible with using the lowest amount of resources possible. So we want to get as much output from as little input. That's what we want. And please don't forget now, time, right? The factor of production, labor, time is also, there is a cost to it. So what we're trying to do is to produce the most amount of stuff possible with the lowest cost. And some of the scarcest, I suppose, factor of production in the world is human labor. So just saying, we could produce it, but it'd take 20 times as long to make it. No. That has a cost in and of itself. Okay, so efficiency is trying to use the least amount of resources, but I'm not just talking about physical ones. I'm also talking about the time of labor spent producing it. So the least amount of resources to produce the most amount of output. Now, this idea of unemployment, so this is the definition that you have to learn off. The state of being eligible for work. Think about a worker. There's a guy or a girl that's eligible for work, actively looking for work, but can't find a job at existing wage rates. Now, just write down what I have defined here because I got this from the IB and this is how they've defined it, so you give them what they want. But essentially, when we're talking about the production possibilities curve, what we're actually saying is that it's all factors of production are being fully used. So when we're talking about unemployment in this sense, at the very, very least, when we're talking about the PPC, the production possibilities curve, and we speak about unemployment, we are saying unemployment of any factor of production. So there could be a factory that's unused, and that factory could be used to make goods and services that you and I enjoy. That's what we mean when we're talking about unemployment. Okay, there's potentially oil reserves down in the ground, and I know they have environmental effects, but they would produce economic well-being at the very least. And they're going unused. That is an unemployed factor of production. So please keep that in mind. So when we're talking about efficiency, it's making the most stuff with the least amount of resources. And when we're talking about unemployment, it's not just talking about the worker, it's talking about every single possible factor of production. So an unemployed person, and I am talking about a person here just to make sure it's understood, but I will make the point later on in this slide that when we speak about unemployment, we're talking about every factor of production. Now, an unemployed person is somebody that is most likely suffering. It is a horrible thing to be unemployed. Psychologically, it is a terrible thing to be unemployed. Unfortunately, we're not talking about that now, but I want to mention it for the sake of your education. When we're studying economics, we are just saying as in terms of productive capability, that's what we're talking about unemployment. So an unemployed person means that some of the labour in the economy is not being used to its full potential. If this person could find a job producing goods and services that you and I enjoy, that means that you and I would have more to consume. Now, the extra output, assuming a stable money supply, don't want to get too much into it, but we talked about the effects on inflation of increase in the money supply, but a stable money supply, a constant money supply, combined with extra output, would cause prices to fall and people could afford to buy more, making them richer in real terms. Even if their income remained the same, the fact that this extra output would cause prices to fall, assuming a constant money supply, means that on average everybody in the economy is richer. Okay, go back to the videos on money and wealth if you don't understand the point that I've just made. And this argument as we've already said in this video, is true for any factor of production. So if there is a machine that is going consistently unused, if there is a factory that is going consistently unused, if there is a natural resource that is going consistently unused, and yes, if there's workers that are going consistently unused, that is an opportunity lost in terms of the amount of production that we as a society could have enjoyed. So we want all of our factors of production, don't forget what that curve means, right? The PPC, we want all of our factors of production not only employed, but employed efficiently. And this is what we're talking about. So it would make no sense if there were, let's say, an economy of 1,000 people and we paid 100 people to dig a hole and the other 100, and there was 200 people unemployed. An economy of 1,000 people, 200 people unemployed, and we paid 100 of those people to dig holes and the other 100 to fill them in. That would be a complete waste of our scarce resources. Having a job does not mean you're efficient. Having a job does not mean that you're benefiting society in an economic sense. So efficient employment means the factors of production are being put to their best use. What does that mean? They're employed, they're doing something, but they're producing goods and services that you and I want, and they're using the least amount of resources that society has in order to produce those goods and services that you and I want. So giving people meaningless, unimportant employment is useless to an economy. Yes, you're just wasting their time. It honestly would be better off, maybe for the mental health, but it would be equally as useless letting them stay at home watching Netflix all day. We need these people that are unemployed to get into efficient work, and that's what the PPC is trying to represent. So this line here, which is our maximum output of desirable goods and services, hot dogs and hamburgers, represents that all factors of production are being employed and efficiently. Now, we're coming to this idea about efficiency in the PPC model, and there is only one criteria for efficiency, but we'll look at it in a second. We have A, B, C, D, and E. We have these 5 bundles. This is what the economy, I don't want to give too much away, but potentially, let's say, in some way, at some stage in the future, they can produce all of them, okay? So, what the questions that we have to ask ourselves now is what points on the PPC diagram, that should probably say, are considered to be efficient? What points on the diagram are considered inefficient? What point is the most desirable that is mentioned or displayed here? And is this point attainable, and why? Now, let's have a look at these in turn. So we're looking at efficiency. When we determine or define efficiency in this model, we know that we have unlimited desires and a limited ability to produce those desires caused by limited factors of production. So all points on the PPC are considered efficient, as all resources or factors of production are being used, and they are being used efficiently. Now, if we are only going to talk in the realm of the points that are labelled here, we are saying A and B are efficient. They are at our absolute maximum of production of desirable goods and services, which has passed the market test. That's more on that in the next unit, but has passed the market test, has proven that people want these things. So therefore, A and B are considered efficient. We are producing as much goods that are desired as our economy, given by the fixed state of nature, the fixed amount of factors of production being used efficiently, is capable of producing. Now, as efficiency means that resources are being used in the best possible way, it implies a few things. Anywhere, any bundle, I actually made the inverted commas with my fingers, you can't even see it, any bundle, which is a combination of hot dogs and hamburgers, any bundle of goods that is on this line is considered productive efficiency. All resources are being fully used. There is no waste in terms of waste of manpower, in terms of waste of resources. They're being used as efficiently as possible, okay? And output is produced using the smallest possible amount of resources. That's what we're saying productive efficiency is, for the moment at least. And that is represented by being on that PPC there. Okay, so any point on that PPC is considered efficient. What points are considered inefficient? Well, any point within, inside, to the left and below the PPC here are considered to be inefficient. Again, just dealing with these 5 points. Points C and D are considered to be inefficient. And I'm saying a bundle because a bundle is just a collection of hot dogs and hamburgers. Here we have 10 hot dogs and 5 hamburgers. Here at D we have 25 hot dogs and 12 and a half hamburgers seemingly, and so on and so forth. But we could have any number of bundles here, any number of collections or combinations of hot dogs and hamburgers that are inside the PPC are considered to be inefficient. And the answer, or the question we must ask ourselves is why? This is because not all resources, not all of our factors of production are being used, and or they are not being used efficiently. Okay, they are being used inefficiently, or they are being used efficiently, but not all of them are being used. So either all of them are being used, but some inefficiently, or not all of them being used, but they're all being efficient, and some combination therein. And why are these things inefficient? Well, an economy producing goods at either C or D simply has the potential to produce more, and if we produce more we can consume more. If we produce more either at point A or point B, or let's say somewhere over here, all right, and we would have more of both goods. We have the capability of enjoying a higher standard of living by producing more and then following that increased production consuming more, and that's how we're defining standard of living. But we are not achieving that, either because of inefficiency of our use of factors of production or just not using all of them or some combination of the two. So anywhere in this region here to the left and below of the production possibilities curve is considered to be inefficient. Now, the point where a country is standing, now we're kind of getting on from efficiency to growth. The point where a country is standing, it indicates its actual output. It's saying this is what the country is producing. So at point C, it's 5 burgers and 10 hamburgers. At point D, it seems to be 12 and a half burgers and 25 hot dogs. Excuse me. I said 5 burgers, 10 hot dogs for point C. 12 and a half burgers, 25 hot dogs for point D. 15 burgers and 40 hot dogs for point A. Okay, that is what's called the actual output. Now, as we can see though, for point C and D, that's below its potential output. Now, what defines potential output is essentially our factors of production and using all of our factors of production efficiently. So when a country is using all of its resources efficiently, the actual output is the point on the PPC. It's any point on the PPC. And the greater the unemployment of resources, or the less efficiently that they are being used, the further away this point will be from the PPC. And when I mean away, I mean left and down. So point C here, either there's a huge amount of inefficiency in the use of factors of production, or all of them are not being used. Now the same is true for point D, but either more factors of production are being used at point D than point C, and or they are being used more efficiently. All right, so either way, neither of these points are inefficient, but we're just saying about the efficient and quantitative use of the factors of production. Now, at any stage, C is the actual output at C is 5 burgers and 10 hot dogs. The actual output at D is 12 and a half burgers and 25 hot dogs. The actual output can be different than the potential output, but we'll look at that in a second. So if a country is producing a bundle or a combination of goods and services at point C or D, it is considered to achieve actual growth. Now, what I mean by that is, if we move from C to D, we have achieved actual growth. Economic growth in general is just this. Economic growth is an increase in the production of goods and services from one period to the next. That's what economic growth is. The increase in the production of goods and services from one year to the next. And if we move from producing at point C to producing at point D, well, then we have had actual growth. We have had economic growth. So what's the definition of actual growth? This occurs when previously unemployed factors of production are brought into use. It is represented by a movement from a point within the PPC to a point nearer to the PPC. And as you can see, D is nearer to the PPC than point C. The country is now producing more hot dogs and burgers than they were before, using more of its scarce resources or using them more efficiently. Now, what point is most desirable here and why? Well, the most desirable point is when we produce and therefore can consume a greater amount of hopefully both goods or at least one good. And that here is point E. Okay? Now, that's what I've said. The reason is because there's more of both goods than any other point here. That if we could move from point C, D, A and B to point E, that would be actual growth as well. The problem with point E, at least currently as we have drawn it, is that it is unattainable. We know that resources are scarce and the maximum potential output is indicated by the PPC. This shows what we can produce. Currently, because E is outside or to the right or above and to the right of the PPC, we do not have the factors of production or the state of technology, the ability to produce both, 45 hot dogs and 25 hamburgers. We can't do it given our limited factors of production and what they are capable of currently producing. Now, I've said all that. Point E is currently unattainable as there does not exist the necessary factors of production and or technology, state of technology required to produce this bundle of goods. Okay, but if something changed, and when I say something, what I really mean by if the quantity and or quality of factors of production increased, the state of technology improved, we got more land and or labour and or capital and or enterprise, that would allow us to produce more, well then what we would see is growth and production possibilities. And this is potential growth, which you will see. I'll bring this when we study macro. If we got more and or better factors of production and or an improvement in technology, our production possibility curve would shift out. Now, it has nothing to do about efficiency of production. The reason that the production possibilities curve shifts outwards is only because an increase in the quantity of factors of production, the quality of factors of production and or the state of technology. That means that because the quantity and quality of our factors of production has improved, the entire productive capacity, the potential production that now can occur, assuming all of our factors of production are being used efficiently, has now increased. We are able to produce more of both goods, and that is shown by an outward shift of the production possibilities curve. Now, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so let's bring it back, okay? So if there's a change in the economy caused by an increase in the maximum amount of goods that can be produced, known as a potential output, that's essentially what the PPC represents. Then the PPC curve will shift outwards. And again, quantity and quality of factors of production, improvement in the state of technology will cause an outward shift, increase in the quantity and quality, of course, of factors of production. This is known as growth in production possibilities. Now, growth in production possibilities, this occurs when the PPC curve shifts outwards, caused by an increase in the quantity and or quality of factors of production and or state of technology. Don't forget that. Either we get more factors of production and or the factors of production get better and or an increase in the state of technology. Now, I do repeat myself a lot, guys. I do apologize, but there's a reason for it. Now, the potential output, what the economy is potentially capable of producing, assuming all factors of production are being used and being used efficiently, okay, are caused by or affected by or a combination of the following. An increase in this. So the increase in an outward shift in the production possibilities curve can be caused by an increase in the quantity of factors of production, an increase in the quality of factors of production, or an improvement in technology, as I have said. So any combination of all of those three would cause an outward shift from PPC 1 to PPC 2. Essentially, if you want to look at it this way, in that throughout most of history since the Industrial Revolution, basically our parents' generation have been able to consume less than we have. And the reason for that is economic growth. And we can show that graphically in a production possibilities diagram by showing an outward shift from PPC 1 to PPC 2. Now, again, I'm sure this video's gone on for too long, but such is life. So if there was an improvement in the education system, we'd become more productive, the PPC curve would shift out. If there was an increase in the quantity of capital, if there was an improvement in capital, if there was an improvement in our technological capabilities, if we found oil in the ground, all of those things, I'll just go back quickly, would cause us to move from PPC 1 to PPC 2. However, we could have stayed at point C, right? We could have, because we weren't using all of our factors of production or all of our factors of production efficiently, but the PPC curve could have shifted outwards from PPC 1 to PPC 2. And I want you to know that it's our potential that is shown by the PPC curves, but our actual production is shown whatever combination of goods and services that we produce. All right, so there could be a huge influx of labour and they're all unemployed. We as an economy can't use them. Well, the PPC curve will shift outwards because of the influx of labour, but we could have gone from producing at point C and remaining producing at point C even following the outward shift of the PPC curve. Okay, so actual growth will be moving from, let's say, point C to point D, but potential growth is shown by moving from PPC 1 to PPC 2. Now, the last paragraph here, maybe you want to pause it for a second and just read it. But if there was a negative effect, if something happened to an economy that caused its factors of production to be destroyed or removed or whatever. So, I mean, some examples, Germany after World War II, okay, the Allies massively destroyed so many of the factors of production that existed in Germany towards the end of the war, that afterwards its productive capacity was so much further below what it was before the war. All right, so that would cause the PP curve to shift inwards. So what we're saying, something like PPC 3 here shows a reduction in potential or possible output, and that would be caused by a destruction or a blowing up, if you want, a rather less forgiving term, of the factors of production, a removal, a getting rid of the factors of production. And again, kind of think of a war in that way. All right. So basically, a war would cause the PPC, or bombings or something like that would cause the PPC to shift inwards because our potential level of production would have fallen. Okay, guys, I know that was a long video. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope that this has helped you in your understanding of the PPC model, and I really do hope to see you in the next video. Take care.